The music industry is a broken, predatory mess, and no one is more proof of that than Jojo. And Jojo would have been one of the biggest pop stars in the entire world if her record label had not sabotaged her. In 2004, she was literally everywhere. You definitely heard this song.
Get out right now. It's the end of you and me.
And for a few years, we were getting hit after hit from her, and then she seemingly disappeared. And that is because she was trapped in a 7-album contract deal with a defunct label that held her work hostage. Welcome to my series, Dirty Pop, where we discuss the dark underbelly of the pop scene. When Jojo was just 12 years old, she signed a record contract for 7 albums with Black Ground Records. And when she was just 13 years old, her debut single, Leave, Get Out, was released and earned her a #1 and also the title of the youngest ever solo act to get a #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. And though she was seeing massive success right out of the gate, she does tell Vulture later that there were massive warning signs with the label as other artists were coming to her and telling her horror stories. But she was determined to keep working through it, and in 2016, she released her second album, The High Road, which also had massive success. But this is where things took a turn for the worse, as Vincent Herbert, who had signed her himself, left the label with no warning. And then shortly after that, they lost their distribution with Interscope Records and Universal Records, leaving them with nowhere to go. But the label was still technically going, and JoJo still technically owed them 5 albums, so she continued to work. But unfortunately, there was no release plan for any of the music that she was making. And by May of 2013, she had a 3rd album ready to go, but the label basically ghosted her at this point. And she was in what I would describe as label purgatory. During the years between the 2nd and 3rd album that JoJo produced, she allegedly recorded hundreds of songs that had nowhere to go. And during this time, she did release 2 unofficial demo tapes that were just music she had waiting to be released and couldn't get released. But of course, without the support of a label, they were critically acclaimed, but they did not have mass commercial success. But she had this 3rd studio album just waiting to go, and she was not hearing back from her label. So by July of 2013, she decided to open a lawsuit. In this lawsuit, she cited the label's inability to release her 3rd studio album, as well as their inability to pay the producers and vendors that she worked with in order to make it. And more importantly, she brought up a New York state law that says that minors cannot sign a contract with somebody that exceeds 7 years. And by this time, it had already been 9 years. Legally, she should have been let out of this contract by 2011, but she was trapped in this contract with the label for 10 years. Thankfully, in 2014, the court ruled in her favor that she should be released from this contract, and she was able to sign on with Atlantic Records, who agreed to release the 3rd studio album, Mad Love. By the way, this album was worth the wait. It's absolutely amazing. You should go back and listen to it if you never did. Some of her best work. Unfortunately, this was not the only issue JoJo ran into, though. Fans were upset that they could not stream JoJo's first 2 albums on Spotify. It was not available there as the record label had pretty much gone defunct at this point. And much like Taylor Swift, JoJo did not own the masters to her music, so she couldn't release them herself, prompting her to re-record both of her first albums in 2018. And this is something a lot of fans don't realize she did, but you can go stream her re-records on Spotify and Apple Music now, and you should support JoJo. Now, I'm sure there's a whole lot more to this story, and I think we're going to get it soon because JoJo last week just announced that her memoir is coming. It's called Over the Influence. It's coming out on September 17th of this year, and it's available for pre-order right now. I am absolutely going to be reading this book. I have it pre-ordered. I'll probably cover it here because this is right up my alley. So stay tuned if you want to hear more about this because I'm sure this will be a topic that comes up again for me on my channel.